With a baby coming in, you will notice that aggression is going to change into love, transform into unconditional presence. It is just their immaturity, which is temporary, because ultimately, as they age, they will learn. Their bitterness is because of work and responsibilities they have. As responsibilities lessen, you will notice a deep transformation in them. Just be more present, more understanding, more compassionate, more supportive. That is what you need to do. These are the things that survivors of narcissistic abuse get to hear from others, or they themselves think. But least they know that narcissists end up getting worse with time. The abuse worsens. The gaslighting, manipulation, lying worsens. More so, the bitterness and overt aggression. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional, and today's episode is all about understanding how narcissists end up and why do they end up this way. Before we begin, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel by pressing the subscribe button and push that bell icon, please, to stay updated with everything that I post here. Also, if you like this video, drop a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. For us to understand why narcissists end up worsening and how they end up becoming miserable, we need to understand the basics. We need to understand that a narcissist is like an empty vessel with a hole in the bottom of it. No matter how much love is poured into it, no matter how many efforts are put into it, it is still empty because everything just gets drained out, which means it needs a refill. That's why they need to depend on multiple sources of supply. And to get this supply, they have their own tactics and different ways of acquiring it. Some narcissists use their physical charm to get people, such as a somatic narcissist does the same thing. Some narcissists use money, others use power. Some of them use influence. But essentially, we know that all of these ways that they use to get this supply are temporary in nature, are perishable, are not permanently reliable because they can end. There is no permanence. For example, if a narcissist, we talk about a somatic narcissist who depends on their physical charm to get to the supply, to get the attention, admiration, adulation, acceptance, validation, and whatever. Eventually, as they get old, this dependence starts shaking because their body gets old. Wrinkles start showing up on their face. They can no more hold themselves together as they used to. Their muscles loosen up and become weaker. Their bones start to crack and give up. Everything that happens is quite opposite of how a narcissist wants to be and what they were reliable on. And this is the point where the narcissist becomes worse because it can no more control. They can no more control other people. They have lost that sense of power. It is a direct narcissistic injury that is beyond their control. It hurts their ego the most. The grandiosity is shaken and it falls apart. And then they just rely on the worst ways of controlling, hurting, and torturing people. You know that a hurt animal is more dangerous than an animal that has not been hurt. A hurt tiger is more aggressive than a tiger that has not been hurt. The same way, a hurt narcissist becomes more volatile, more aggressive, more destructive because they just are so triggered within themselves that they just act like a beast. That is why, as they age, they end up becoming more dangerous than they were in the beginning. And that is why things are not going to change as time goes on. At this point of time, most of the sources of supply start leaving them. They can no more acquire new sources of supply. And that is why a narcissist can go into two states. A narcissist collapse, where the narcissist fully collapses and goes into like a deep depression kind of state where they start withdrawing, isolating, and doing stuff like that that shows more like they have just given up on their life. Or narcissistic hibernation. If they hibernate, they enter a state of temporary rest where they gain their strength back and think of ways, if they still have some, to acquire supply back. Which is why you may have noticed that most narcissists hoard money, materialistic stuff, because money can become a temporary, reliable source to get the supply that you could not get otherwise using the tactics that did not use money. Now, if a narcissist hibernates and if they have hoarded a lot of money, if they have a lot of materialistic stuff or things that they can use, then they start using stuff like that to get supply. Other narcissists step into positions that gives them power and authority. For example, some narcissists who were clearly non-religious throughout their life certainly start becoming religious. They become those religious leaders who talk about God, spirit, and all the stuff in between all the time, because that gives them the opportunity to have a crowd around them who pays attention, who listens, who follows them. The narcissist becomes that cult leader and has that authority to control again. So they just try to cling on these ways, these different ways to give them the power back that they lost earlier, because they cannot use the ways that they had access to earlier. And this is how a narcissist ends up. But eventually nothing works. Everybody, in most of the cases, is able to see through them and leaves them, and they end up lonely, miserable, single, struggling, suffering, and no one there to take care of them. No one there to genuinely support them throughout their last days. Because this is exactly what happened to my grandfather, and this is what I have seen, this is what I have heard about in the stories that people share with me. Bringing it together, all together, narcissists are like vessels. They need supply, and they use different ways of acquiring the supply. But as time goes on, the dependency weakens, because they can no more rely on those ways. As time changes everything, they then eventually either collapse, like fully go into that depression-like state and then almost turn into a victim, or they hibernate temporarily and then come out with different ways of acquiring supply. Be it taking a position of a religious leader, a spiritual leader, a teacher, or a politician, or anything that you can think of that can give them that power back. I hope you found today's episode helpful and insightful. Please share your understandings and experiences in the comments below. I'll talk with you very soon. Till then, let the healing begin.